Hello, my name is JC and I work as a creative director on Prince of Persia 3 working title. Before Prince of Persia 3 I worked on Prince of Persia 2, Prince of Persia 1, so Warrior Within, Sands of Time, and prior to this I worked on Rayman titles, The Great Escape and Rayman Arena. My job as a creative director is twofold. In the beginning of the game, I work closely with a creative team, meaning a scriptwriter, an art director, an animation director, quite a lot of people, level designers too, in order to define what the scope of the game is and what the game will be in the end. So that's where we draw all the blueprints for the game to come. And then later on in the game, my job is mainly to make sure that everybody shares the same vision and is on the same track on this. The difference with the producer is that the producer is usually the guy who is on the phone all day, who is frowning and has a lot of problems, whereas my life is much easier. In fact, I think it's an evolution of the Prince throughout the three games that is quite important because it's set on the trilogy. Quite usually on the trilogy, the second part in the trilogy is the darkest one, and well, it's a part of the character arc to go from the Prince character arc to go from the naive Prince who was a little bit arrogant and made a mistake. In the end, he made it all right, but by dodging it, to someone who then is chased by an enemy, becomes a darker character, tries the best he can to survive, and with very selfish goals. And in the end, what we try to bring in Prince of Persia 3 is to make the prince become the hero he is supposed to be. So the evolution is that the lighter tone from Sands of Time will come back in Prince of Persia 3, as the character of the prince will evolve from selfish to more selfless, and the hero and when he stands as a prince for his people. The darker tone has been tamed in the sense that it's more a mix between the two moods of the previous games, since the prince will evolve from the character he was at the end of Prince of Persia 2 to this Prince of Persia. When making a game, of course, we take into account the consumer feedback, but we have to be very careful on what we consider being consumer feedbacks. We have several sources of feedback from the consumers, one being the boards, for example. But we need to be quite wary about the boards because usually it's the people who didn't like the game who come here, so they kind of complain, which is normal, but not always constructive and does not always represent the majority of the players. We have marketing surveys that tend to give us more general information and statistics, which are very nice. And finally, we do a lot of playtesting throughout each step of the game creation that enable us to see how players react to different aspects of the game, quality-wise, but also their understanding and their appreciation of all kind of aspects of the game. Of course, we try to make things that we like, so it's usually a compromise to find between all these aspects, between the needs of Ubisoft, between what we'd like to do and between what information we can get from consumer feedback. But usually the consumer feedback is always like king, since it's meant for the consumer. The way we deal with ideas is we try to this is more production-wise, but it's much more efficient if we concentrate the ideas in the beginning phase. We open the scope a lot. We make sure that we have all these crazy ideas, really a lot, wild, crazy things. And then we concentrate a little bit more and we try to cut everything that is not in the scope of the game and that is a little bit weird. And later on in production, we try to incorporate all the good ideas, but as the constraints are getting much more present in the production process, it's much harder to incorporate an idea that compromises other things. So we'll have to find ways, and usually it's more in the beginning that we have a lot of ideas and we incorporate them, and during the production it's smaller ideas, smaller scale elements, etc. Well, personally, what I think interesting on this game is working with all the people here around, the fact that they are all very talented, that it places a lot of challenge on us because we take decisions and we try to renew everything every time, we try to make it better, to bring new elements. I mean, it's really a new experience. It's taking a risk, and that's what makes it interesting. It's not the same game every year. We're not I mean, sometimes it doesn't work out as intended, but at least we deserve credit for trying to change it, whereas we could just bring out the same game every year again. That's what I like, making new things.